Oh,
Hi, welcome. I'm Christina Del Moore, a mixed media painter, and I'm very proud to be a first-year participant in the Rittenhouse Square Fine Art Show. Thank you so much for joining me here in my home studio in Southwest Florida. I wish I could be there in Philadelphia in person with you. I'm from up around those parts. I grew up in the New Jersey, Delaware area, so I miss being up there, so I wish I could be. Here's hoping for September. In the meanwhile, thank you for joining me today. So, like I said, I'm a mixed media painter. What does that mean? It means that I'll use any materials at my disposal to achieve a look that I desire. Primarily lately, I've been using a lot of two-part epoxy art resin in layers, and then I incorporate painting into that, either oil or acrylic painting. By the way, feel free to ask any questions. I don't know if we'll see them all. I've got my wonderful son here, Julian, who is the cameraman, and if he sees a question, he will interrupt me and I'll do my best to answer it. You can also visit my Facebook professional page, which is Christine Adele Fine Arts. You can find me there and ask any questions there too. And if you want to show me some love, give me a like. Anyway, so this is a piece I created with two-part epoxy resin and various materials, especially mica powders, and aluminum shavings. This is a piece I decided to keep just resin and not add any painting into it. I call it Resurrection. I think it has a lot of beautiful depth and soul, and it really didn't need any more embellishment after the resin, so I kept this as it was, and I think it's lovely. But here, on the other hand, is an example of where I incorporated artwork, or painting rather, into the resin. Most of my work is on canvas. You can see this is a canvas substrate. And with this one, I created an abstract look with layers and layers of epoxy resin first, before there was ever an owl involved. Once I created that abstract image, I meditate on it for a while until I start to see an image come to my mind from my subconscious, I suppose. So I started to see an owl in this one. I used, for the eyes and the beak, I used actual 24 karat gold leaf and then glazed over it with oil paint to give it that extra luminance, to really make you feel like he's watching, and that's what it's actually called, is watching. After the painting portion was done, when I got the owl image I was happy with, I did coat this one again with resin to give it some shine and extra pop with more of the aluminum and some metallic gold that I mix into the resin. When I do resin pours, I don't just use one color, and I don't just use clear. I use a mixture of clear and tinted resin. I find that this gives me a lot of depth to my work, as we'll explain as we go along. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to do some resin work, and while that sets up and cures for a while, I will go around and show you some of my other artwork, okay? So let's get going. Here is Leo. Leo is a painting I just completed. He did not start out as an abstract resin piece. He started out actually with a bunch of gnarly texture that probably Julian can pick up. But I put in a lot of really pebbly, thick, heavy texture. I thought it would lend itself really well to this fierce, wonderful, proud painting of this creature, which I love. Leo is the first in a series of astrological signs that I'm going to be creating. I love Leos, I love lions, so I started with him. I'm very pleased with it so far. But I think this could really benefit with some shine and some oomph that the resin will provide. wonderful thing about resin, to me, is it makes your colors look as fresh and bright and juicy as if I just painted them. It brings them right back to life, like they're still wet. So that's what we'll do. I'm going to put the, I'm going to lift this up onto cups, because when I pour the resin onto this piece, it'll run over the edge. And if I kept it flat on the table, as the resin would cure, it would stick the painting to the resin, to the table, and it just becomes a big mess that nobody wants to handle. So we're going to do that on each corner. Now we have to measure our epoxy. I have this one here is the hardener. Pour the hardener in first, and this is a 1-to-1 ratio epoxy. This is a no VOC epoxy, so it's safe for me to be using it with no mask at this point. Typically when I work by myself, I will use a respirator mask when I fire this with a torch, which you'll see later on, because there is some off-gassing. I won't do that today. I think I've seen enough of masks for a while, so I'll just give you a break for the next 40 minutes or so on the mask thing. So I'm going to put in 50% hardener. And now this is the resin portion. So I'll pour in another 50% of the resin. Now I have to stir this thoroughly. If I don't stir it thoroughly, it won't dry properly, and areas of it will remain sticky. And nobody likes sticky resin. So you can see as I stir how cloudy this is, and that's one of the indicators that it is not fully mixed yet. As I stir and stir, it's going to become more and more crystal clear. I discovered this process of using resin years ago when I used to use this product to protect my oil paintings, my traditional oil paintings. And I had some resin left over after using it as the clear coat. So I decided to play with it, mixing in mica powder and other inks and stuff, and just started playing around and pouring it, and my techniques that you'll see today developed. My background, I have been a professional artist for many, many years. I haven't had a job, like a paycheck type job, since I was in high school. Ever since then, I've managed to eke out a living doing work as an artist. Through college, I would do murals or portraits, t-shirt designs, whatever it took. And then out of college, I got some work doing murals and wall finishes, and I still run a company doing wall finishes and murals here in the Southwest Florida area and other parts of the country. But that experience of doing murals and working with interior designers that I've had has really pushed me beyond my comfort zones, because I've had to accommodate the tastes and desires and dreams and wishes of so many different kinds of people. So I've had to discover ways to do things that I had no idea how to do, discover different materials to achieve certain looks, and the work that you'll see today is a culmination of all of that experience that I've had. It's been an incredible 26 years. It's flying by, and I love every second of it. I feel so fortunate to be able to make my living as an artist. Okay, you can see how clear this is now. It's just about fully mixed. So I'm going to now coat the canvas with this. And then after this clear layer cures for a few minutes, I'm going to add in some splashes of some metallic golds into here. I think it'll look really fabulous on this mane. I'll do it in a splashy kind of a way that's going to make a big mess, and I think it'll add some real fury to this wonderful piece. Well, I think it's wonderful. You may have a differing opinion. I don't know. Okay, so I'm just going to start pouring a lot of this here in the center. Just like that. I have a paper towel at the ready because I will be needing it. And I'm using these, which is why I wear gloves. I will spread it out over the canvas. You can use trowels and other things to spread this out, but I prefer my hands because I can really feel where it's hit and where it hasn't hit. And it's more of a sensual experience. I love resin. If you can see how the blacks are really becoming black when the resin goes, and the colors just pop again. They just come right back to life. It's amazing what this stuff does to a painting. I think, anyway. And I will be posting the finished piece of this on my Facebook professional page and on my website tomorrow. So if anybody's curious how this will fully dry and turn out, we can take a look tomorrow. It's ChristineAdeleArts.com or Christine Adele Fine Arts on Facebook. Now, of course, you can also find me through the Rittenhouse Square website too, along with so many other great artists. I'm so proud to be in their company. Excuse me. Do we have any questions coming in yet, Julian? No questions yet, okay. Almost done with this. And I want to make sure that I take the resin over to the edge. I just, with my hands, to make sure that the sheen consistency is the same over all of the edges of the canvas, and they don't look dry and thirsty compared to the front.
When does the old get added? When do you always hand mix the resin, or can it be put in a blender?
No, it couldn't be put in a blender. I'll tell you why. Because you will get so many bubbles if you put it in a blender that will be very difficult to lose. So it has to be hand mixed and in batches. With each batch, I only have, depending on the temperature in the room, I only have 20 to 40 minutes of working time. Then the resin starts to heat up and cure and becomes unworkable.
And when does the gold get added?
I'm going to wait about maybe 20 minutes or so as I talk about the other art in the room while this cures. And I'll tell you why. When I add the gold, if I were to add it now with this resin being so wet and then adding in very wet resin on top of it, it would just diffuse. And I don't want it to diffuse. I want crisp lines of the gold and the whatever. So I'm not going to let that happen. Now I can, yeah, I'm good. I think I've coated it all. I'm going to look at an angle and see that everything is nice and shiny. And I see a little dull spot there. Let's get that. If anybody tries this at home, take advice from me. I've got a couple of pieces of advice. Number one, don't wear your new Apple Watch while you do resin because you'll ruin it quick like I did. Number two, even though a lot of websites tell you to take this resin off of your skin with alcohol, don't do that. That puts the resin right into your bloodstream. Not good for you. Use baby wipes instead. Much, much, much safer. Okay, now, before we move on, I need to take out any bubbles that might be existing in this. So that's where I get to play with fire. So this is my little torch. You just have to move across the surface really fast, not touching it, but close enough that it pops any bubbles. I see a little holiday there. I'll cover up. You can't linger in any one spot with this fire for too long, otherwise you will scald the surface and create an undesirable kind of sheen difference in the resin. So you have to move as you do it.
Is it okay if you were to answer some questions now?
Sure. I think I've got the bubbles. Let me just finish this noisy portion, then I'll... Okay, I think we're good. Go ahead, I can answer anything you want now.
Do you have a process to reduce bubbles in the resin?
Well, that's this. And also not stirring too fast. Another thing is on porous surfaces, if you were to put resin on wood, you're going to get bubbles. It doesn't matter how many times you use this, you're going to keep getting bubbles. So you have to there's ways that you can pre-coat the wood to seal it. But no, this is the best way. Some people like to go with a little toothpick, bubble by bubble by bubble, but I'd go out of my mind. So this is the best way to do it. Any other questions?
Does it ever need more than one coat? Or do you ever want more than one coat?
Oh yeah, great question. Well, for the final layer, it's usually just one coat, but when I make my paintings, it's always more than one coat. For instance, to achieve this, it's probably, I think this was 6 layers, and you can really see, it's probably about 3/4 of an inch thick in the center of this. I use the give of the canvas to create depth in the center of the piece. So yes, the layering is what I love. I love the layering. It really invites the audience into the picture and takes you on a journey.
And can you tell us again the brand of resin you use?
Certainly. It's called Art Resin. It has no smell. It's very reliable. It's non-yellowing, except there was some time when I was using a certain kind of a white pigment that did cause some ambering effect to the resin. But mostly I've had no problems with ambering at all, as long as I don't use that one particular pigment. But yes, I trust their product very much. Art Resin. Artresin.com, one word. Really good stuff. All right. I want to walk over here and show you this painting of Sophie. We'll talk about the depth more. This is a portrait of a singer. And you can see, I hope, let me go over here where I can rest it. There we go. Julian, can you kind of close up on the center here? In the center of this canvas, it's about 3/4 of an inch to an inch deep. And this painting is about 10 layers of resin, finalized with some art and then resin one more time. I mean art, oil painting, and then the resin one more time. I created all of this as an abstract first, and then as I meditated, I saw this face, her face, working into this really, really well. So that is what I'm talking about. And I want to talk about all of the shiny bits I like to put into my paintings. The reason I like to incorporate all of these reflective pieces, these are little gold aluminums. I use a lot of aluminum shavings. I use broken mirror pieces. For me, as you move around and the light hits it and it reflects in different ways, it just adds so much life. It becomes a living piece to me. So when they shine like that, and I don't, it's just alive. So that's why I like to use all the aluminums and mirror pieces and such like that.
Can you answer some questions right now?
Absolutely.
So, one question is, will the resin work on metal?
Yes.
So, you can paint oils on top of and in between the layers of resin?
Yes, but you need to make sure that oil is fully cured. If you use acrylic, safer, because it dries faster. But oil, you need to really make sure that stuff is pure, and then you can. Otherwise, you could get some discoloration and some fogginess in your layer on top of the oil. But yes, it's possible. Any other questions?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, so let's walk down memory lane for a second. This is a piece on the wall up here that I did when I was around 21 years old, with still the residue of my teenage angst attached to me. But I love the piece. It's old, it's crinkled and everything, but I love it anyway. And this is a simple and decorative piece, but I love it. It reminds me of a night blooming garden. So with this piece, I coated the canvas black first, entirely black, and then I put on a layer of resin that had this aluminum flake mixed in, and it reminded me of a starry sky deep in the woods. Then I used modeling paste to create the flowers and the garden. I then colored the modeling paste with acrylics, and then I resined it again and put some gold and such on there. Nice simple piece. I like it. Here is Surf Evolution. This is a piece that I started with the abstract image first. Layers, about 3 layers of just the epoxy resin. If you go to my professional Facebook page, Christina Del Fine Arts, you can see the stages. I have it posted somewhere on there where you can see how this went from resin abstract to what it is today. This is one of my very favorites. I love him.
Is it okay if you answer some questions?
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Where do you source your aluminum and gold?
Well, the gold powder, I wish I could tell you. I have a store of it that I found in my late mother's art studio. It's fantastic. And I love the way, like in this, I love the way it kind of breaks up and there's flat areas. It has a great effect. I don't know where she got it. I just found it in my mother's studio, so I wish I could tell you. Someday it's going to run out, and I'm going to have to find it. So if you find it, let me know, please.
And where
And
do
for the aluminum, that's something called the tiny little aluminum flake is called Crystallia, and I get that through. Give me a minute on that. I'll think of the name. But if you just look up Crystallia, spelled with a K-R-Y, it'll take you to the websites where I get it. Okay. And then this is another kind of flake I get, and this is like broken mirror pieces, and this is called betterpaths.com is where I source that from.
Can your pieces be hung on a wall that gets a lot of sun?
The darker pieces can, yes. The ones that are based on white, like my fish over here, this is my fish dance. This is resin and modeling paste, pretty much exclusively. There's only a minimal brushstroke painting in this. Mostly it's done with resin and modeling paste. But this one, being white, there's a chance it could amber a little bit if it gets too much direct sun. But like this horse, these horses here, one of my favorites, Together We Could, it's called. This could go in direct sun because there's no white background that's going to amber up on you with that. And the ambering is not necessarily always a bad thing. For Sophie here, she started out a lot whiter. This is when I was using that pigment I was telling you about that ambered my paintings. But it doesn't bother me with this, and I think it's a beautiful kind of antiqued effect. So it's not going to get any more amber than this. This is it. But I think it's really beautiful the way it aged that way. So it's not always a bad thing. So if you don't mind the ambering, you can go anywhere you want. But.
You made a bucket full, but used half.
Right.
What are you going to do with the rest?
Good question.
Or why not making less?
Well, I should have made less, but since I'm on camera and not used to doing this, I probably mixed more than I needed. Typically, I always have other paintings set up to resin in case I make too much, because resin is very expensive and I don't like to waste it at all. So maybe at the end of this video, if this is still workable, I'll run over to my real resin studio and pour this on something. I will be using some of this though for the gold glittery stuff I'm going to put on. But yeah, this isn't my real resin studio. This is where I do my watercolor and other paintings. My real resin studio is in the garage where I have lousy internet, so I'm doing a makeshift area here.
Do you find that the reflexicity of the resin creates a challenge in viewing the paintings?
No more so than framing your work with glass. Now, I do get that question a lot, but I also don't always coat my pieces with resin. Sometimes, like this piece here, this tree, this is about 85% complete. There's still a lot of resolution that needs to happen. I'm not going to coat this with resin. I think it's going to be great just like it is. This is a combination of modeling paste to create this really rich texture, and then oil paint. And I don't want to go with resin. So not all my paintings do have that. The shine isn't for anybody, or not for everybody. But also, any of my pieces that have this high shine can be converted to have a matte finish just simply by putting a layer of matte medium on them. I've done that before, and it's very effective. So now I'm going to mix up some of my gold and other things that I want to add into my line. I love these little things. This is some gold aluminum that I got from a site called Faux by Kathy, and I think the color is going to lend itself really great to Leo here. Let's put some that in there. Now, I'll use some of my mother's special gold metallic powder. For this portion, I really don't want to breathe this, so just temporarily while I mix it, I am going to put a paper towel over my face. Now, I think I'm going to brighten this gold up though with some of this wonderful aluminum powder, the Crystallia. Maybe it could be just a little bit brighter for Leo here. Even a little bit more. Yeah, that's good now. I like that. Here's a tip. Here, a couple of tips. When you have the resin in these you need the graduated containers if you really want a good, to be sure that you've got an accurate one-to-one mixture. When you're finished pouring onto some plastic, when this is empty, let it drain on the plastic upside down. It'll drip out, and then you can peel out the dried resin after it's cured and use the cup again, okay, to be kinder to the earth. Same thing with these squeezy jars. If you kind of prop them up over some paper towels, you can reuse those too. But I like the squeezy jars because then I can play with the lines easier than just pouring from a cup. So I'm going to fill up my squeezy.
Is it okay if you answer a question?
Absolutely.
Did you say there are matte resins or resins with a variety of sheen? And if so, do they obscure details slightly if they are not high gloss?
Well, no, the resin only comes in the one sheen. But what can be done is if you scuff the surface up, you sand it, and then you coat it with just a matte varnish. It does reduce the depth a little bit, but it kills the shine. So, sometimes I do the paintings on top of the resin, and then I don't coat them again with the resin, like here, before I do that gold stage. This is called the Empress of China. It was based on a song by the songwriter Dory Previn. And with this one, I wanted to leave the oil painting layer as it was. So this one is kind of a combination of the high shine and of just the painted areas of the oil. And I love the combination of the painting sheen with the shine. I think it's beautiful, just as it is. So I won't touch that one. And another technique I do to kind of break up that high shine is I add texture to it, like I did with, this is Chariot, Chariot to Heaven rather. So one of my very favorite pieces. I love painting horses. I think they're just so beautiful. But for him, I added some of this texture as the last stage, just to give a break from all of the shine. And I think I'm going to be doing this more and more. I like the juxtaposition of the really shiny, and then the rough texture. I think it's great. And as I am mixed media, I do love doing watercolor and ink too, not just resin and oil paint. So there's one of my watercolors. And another. This one's called Life on Earth. And a work in progress. And this one I call Mother's Day. I just finished on Mother's Day, as a matter of fact. So, let's go back over and put some glitter and sparkle on Leo, shall we? Now, with this one, that's got these long little aluminum gold fibers. They kind of get stuck in the squeezy jar, so I'm just going to do it from here. And I don't want to place these carefully. This is a stage to have immediacy and spontaneity. It needs to be splashed on without too much thought, in my opinion. I like it to be more organic than that. And this, when these are over some of the dark areas, whoa, did they pop. I don't like that on this nose though, so let's take that off. There we go. I already love it. I'm already pleased I used this. It's very nice. One of the things I love about, or another thing I love about working with resin and creating images out of the abstract layers, it's more of an organic experience. I spent so many years making very, very careful paintings, trompe l'oeil techniques, all of this. But with the resin, you can't control it 100%. It's a collaborative effort between me and the medium. So I find that very exciting. I never know exactly how the layer is going to dry. Gravity takes hold, and there's different drying times that you can actually play with to get the effect you want. But still, you can only guide it using drying times and other things. So I have to work with what I get, and I find that just really thrilling and fun, and it pulls, because of that, it pulls things out of my subconscious rather than me just saying, okay, I'm going to paint that today. And I don't know, I love it. It's fun.
Is it okay if you answer some more?
Sure.
Can we give him a gold tooth?
If you buy it, you can do whatever you want. That's fun.
Was the other layer dry already?
The clear, if you mean the clear resin, no, but it set up some. It started to cure enough so that when I put this on now, it's not just going to diffuse into it. These lines should stay relatively crisp for the next layers. Gold tooth, that's funny. Funny man or funny woman, I like it. All right, it's almost done. I don't want to overkill this just for the sake of this video. I'm just going to add a couple more. Make a mess here. I have to kind of splash it to get the effect I want, so here we go. Yeah. Yep, I think we're done. I don't want to go nuts here. I'm so pleased with this painting. I want to leave it. So I have to use fire again, so forgive the noise. And then we'll have just a few more minutes for questions. Wow, the time has flown by. My goodness. You have to look at it at an angle. Make sure you got all the bubbles. I think I did. Looks pretty good. Wait, here's a few. And she's done. I want to remind you that if you would like to buy any of my pieces, I'm offering just for the duration of the Rittenhouse Square Fine Art Show, 20% off. If you contact me through my website and you mention that you saw this video, I'll offer 20% off and free shipping throughout the contiguous United States. So please check me out there. What else can I tell you? What else? If there's any questions, now's a good time. We've got about 3 more minutes. I'm so happy that you joined me here today. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to share my space with you. Here is, I'll just show you real quick poppies here. This painting has a lot of gold leaf, copper leaf, and lots of layers and modeling paste and acrylic paints, and it gets a lot of attention. When I bring it to art shows, all the ladies love to take selfies in front of this. It probably is all over Instagram, but so that's just fun. Oh, and over here, Phoenix over there, that piece, Julian, can you zoom in on that? That one was created with only resin. The Phoenix itself, I cut out of resin that I poured onto plastic and then cut and pasted it to another resin piece. So that's why it's got that kind of cut out dimensional look there. So sometimes it is like that too. Okay, well, I guess I will say my goodbyes, and thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to share my work with you. Be blessed. Have a great day. Oh, question? Yes.
How much weight does the resin add?
Well, it depends on how many layers. Typically, my paintings, if they're a large piece like this is about 15 pounds. So is that crazy? I mean, it looks like it's made out of granite. It looks like it's way heavy, but it's not as heavy as it appears. I think my turtle over there, which is huge, is about 25 at the most.
Oh, does resin allow the pieces to be hung out outside?
Yes, again, direct sunlight is not ideal, and when a piece is going to be hung outside, I coat the back to protect the canvas from getting mildewed, but yes, it can totally go outside with no problem. All right. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any other questions, go to Christine Adele Fine Arts on my Facebook, and I'll be happy to answer more. Thank you.